So yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Corey Cote. I am from Kitigan-Zibi, Anishinaabeg in Quebec, about an hour and a half, 2 hours north of Ottawa. Currently based here on my home territory in Ottawa, though. So please feel free to put in the chat where you're all joining in from. I'd be interested to hear where everyone's coming from today. First thing I wanted to mention, though, is this meeting is being recorded, so just want to make sure everything's okay with that. And for the duration of the presentation, if everyone can keep their their microphones muted, that would be great. And we will have time for questions at the end, so please let's save them for the end. But yeah, with that, let's get going. And yeah, today's presentation is on the Project Accelerator and promoting healthy energy living. So the first thing, before I get started though, I first wanted to mention that this webinar series with Indigenous Clean Energy is put together with the support of the Alberta Strategic Partnership Initiative. So I want to first turn it over to Rob St. Denis from Prairies Can to quickly introduce himself and the initiative.
Okay, Pansay Danatara. Morning, everyone. My name is Rob St. Denis. I'm a band member of Beardy's and Okamesis Cree Nation, but I've been instructed to introduce myself as Blackfoot. I'm here in Calgary in Treaty 7 territory, and my Blackfoot name is Aka Stakata. That name was given to me by Francis First Charger, who's a respected elder from the Blood Tribe near Lethbridge. And I've been with Prairies Can for about 6 weeks now, and I work in with the Alberta Indigenous Clean Energy Initiative. So this will be really valuable to any First Nations in Alberta to connect with us if you want to get your clean energy projects going. So the Strategic Partnership Initiative focuses on 4 areas of support, really, with consultation and engagement, capacity building and mentorship, planning and development, and project enhancement and capitalization for some of the pilot projects in clean energy. So it's a really good partnership for us to work with Indigenous Clean Energy on these webinars, which will also help with capacity. I think my coworker Courtney Hiscock is on the call as well, and I think she can probably drop in the chat our contact information. So for any Indigenous community in Alberta that wants to connect and get a project going or needs support in any of the 4 areas that I mentioned, please follow up with us. The program has been operating since or launched in fiscal year 22-23, and will operate until 25-26. So we're here to support and would love to hear from Indigenous communities in Alberta. So I don't know, Courtney, if you can help, if you're on, if you can drop maybe our contact information and a link to our page in the chat.
Yeah, sure. I sent it in a few minutes ago. I'll resend it there as well. So anybody have any questions or want information, our contact information is on that website. Looking forward to hearing from you all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rob and Courtney. Yeah, so jumping back to the Indigenous Clean Energy, I'll give a quick intro to who we are. So we are a social enterprise, an independent, Indigenous governed nonprofit organization. It's quite the mouthful, but basically what we do is we support First Nation, Métis, and Inuit clean energy participation in every region of Canada to advance Indigenous and broader sustainable prosperity. So, I mean, a lot of our work includes clean energy capacity building and project development support. We really promote Indigenous youth clean energy leadership, building connections for clean energy impact, and sharing knowledge and fostering collaboration between communities from coast to coast to coast. So everything that we do really at ICE is we connect it to community. Creating community amongst our participants. We're trying to ingrain culture in the communities that and work closely with the communities that we work with, and then we get out on the land whenever possible. So I mean, that's really who we are, and so essentially it's capacity building and supporting Indigenous clean energy leadership. So I'll give a little look at some of our programs here, and these are also the upcoming webinars in this webinar series. So the first one is the 2020 Catalyst program. That is our flagship program, which essentially started ICE. So we've now successfully built capacity with 100 participants over 5 cohorts. I think we're actually at about 120 now, over 6 cohorts. So I should update that. But building renewable energy capacity in communities across Canada. So that's really what that program's been about. It's 3 weeks of in-person intensive training on clean energy, everything from community engagement to project financing to energy storage, renewable energies, transmission. So it's really a broad program, and it's so amazing. So definitely look forward to that one. It is next week on the 24th. And then we have the Charge Up program, which is supporting building Indigenous electric vehicle infrastructure. So helping communities build up their infrastructure for the upcoming electrical evolution, I guess, in vehicles. So that's one, and it's exciting to hear about that. We have a registered energy advisor training program at ICE. So we're helping to train energy advisors. And then we have 2 youth programs here at ICE. So the first one is Generation Power. So basically it's an Indigenous youth internship program where we have an 80% wage subsidy for youth internships, and we connect them with employers so that they're getting firsthand on-the-job experience in the clean energy sector, and it's sort of a good way to get them in and involved. And the second program is Imagination, which supports youth-led clean energy projects. We offer $30,000 in project funding. We offer clean energy training. We offer project mentorship, and so I mean, stay tuned. If definitely check out these other webinars. I would highly recommend it. Some great content there. And then today's webinar is about bringing it home. So that's the program. I'm the program manager of this initiative. So I don't even know if I introduced myself as the program manager at the start, but a little bit about bringing it home. So we are a national Indigenous-led initiative working to scale up energy efficiency efforts in Indigenous communities. So I want to give a little bit of the history of who we are. We started working with 5 or 6 guide communities at the start of bringing it home, and supporting them through their energy efficiency work. And through that, we took those learnings, those practices, the community input, and that's really what drove us towards the new Project Accelerator program that I'll be talking about here shortly. So it's all about collaboration, sharing knowledge, and really the need to scale energy efficiency so that we can do this work for all homes and all communities across Turtle Island, and build up the capacity so that these are not just one-off projects, but these communities can lead these projects and create a better future for generations to come. And it's not just you do a one project and that's that. So yeah, a lot of working with Indigenous experts and industry leaders across the country and organizations as well. That's been a lot of my last 2.5 years, is finding those people, connecting with them, and bringing their expertise in to really form a strong program. So why are we doing this? And so I just quickly want to touch on that as well. I mean, housing is an issue in nearly every community, Indigenous community across Canada. I mean, there are things like overcrowding, unhealthy living spaces because of mold and indoor air issues. There's high energy costs. Homes are not lasting as long. So this program is really us trying to support evolving housing practices in Indigenous communities. So our participants will have an opportunity to lead this work and build up this capacity, and then become the next generation of experts and mentors, and paving the way for other communities, because it's all through that collaboration. So that's really why we sort of took that focus. And I do want to sort of emphasize that when it comes to Indigenous housing, we're fully aware, and we realize that efficiency is often not the top priority for community members. So it's important to remember that when we're talking energy efficiency, that we're approaching housing with a view of energy efficiency as a tool to achieve homes that are healthier, more affordable. So I mean, when we talk about health, it's improving the indoor air quality and preventing detrimental living conditions such as mold issues, deficient heating, draftiness, preventing things that can make people sick. The durability, I mean, if we're actually able to retrofit a home or build higher performing homes that extend the lifespan. Let's say you can extend the lifespan of a home by 10-15 years. That's 10-15 more years that a community has a house. So then they're able to build up their housing stock, and we can start addressing the housing shortage that we're seeing in a lot of communities. We've seen from, I think it was the First Nations National Building Officers Association, I think Indigenous homes on reserve homes were lasting like 7 to 15 years, which is like, it's as short as 7 to 15 years. That's crazy when you think of a off reserve home that they're lasting 30, 40, 50 years. So, I mean, you really can never really get ahead there. And then the cultural appropriateness, I mean, you can also incorporate cultural design features that support traditions and Indigenous ways of being when you're doing these sorts of projects. So it is really, we emphasize these points. It's not always about energy efficiency. Yes, that's the tool, but this is what's really important to us and to community members. So just some of those challenges you can see here, like, I don't want to go too long on this, but like poor building practices will create sort of higher long-term costs, homes that don't last as long, so it's overcrowding. So you have these challenges, implications, and then consequences. These are just a few examples. And so what we're looking at is inserting energy efficiency to sort of break that cycle and create some healthy, affordable homes and facilities for our nations. So I'll talk quickly to the starting points. So there are sort of 5 different levels of energy efficiency when it comes to housing and buildings. So you see them here: conservation, basic measures, minor retrofits, deep retrofits, and new builds. So I have a few examples of each of these, and this is just from our online research. This might be a little bit outdated now, but here's an example of some Indigenous energy efficiency projects that have taken place in Canada. And so the first one here is an example of conservation in Jean Marie River First Nation in the Northwest Territories. Essentially, they did some education, and really conservation has to do with behavior and how you're using energy. So basically what they did is they found they did an energy audit. They saw that they had this Coke machine that no one was ever using, and they found that it was they unplugged it and they saved $9,000 a year in annual savings. It was just using all this energy and no one was using it. So essentially conservation is free. It's all about user behavior of energy in the home. Oops. The second one is the basic measures. So there's a energy saving kit program in Ontario, for example. So that's one example. So it's simple fixes. The low hanging fruit is what we call them. So things like, putting in more efficient light bulbs, faucet aerators, so you're using less water, little air sealing things to, like, it's low hanging fruit. It doesn't take a lot of skill. You can probably do it as a home occupant and do it yourself. So little things like that go a long way. They do make a pretty big difference. This is Hellship First Nation, BC, and this is an example of a minor retrofit. So it's a bit more significant of a change. It does require some technical skills. And so minor retrofit could be like upgrading the heating, the lighting, lighting systems, those sorts of things. So in Hellship, what they did is they upgraded to electric heat pumps. And now they're saving up to $1,000 a year in first, like, I think actually it's $250 a month in electricity, or in energy costs. And then they're actually seeing a lot of air quality improvements, and that's what's being reported from the members there. A lot less runny noses and coughs and things like that. So we do have a link, and I'll share these slides with everyone after this presentation, so you can sort of get these hyperlinks. And then here's more of what our focus is, and this is the deep retrofit. And so this is really getting to the bones of the building and means really making big enhancements to the home. So you're talking things like the insulation. You can see in that picture there that they actually took the exterior siding off and they're actually putting some insulation, and then they'll put their siding back on. So they're actually giving it more. So things like air barrier, windows, doors, those sorts of things. Conservation on the coast, they did 120 homes. That was between Attawapiskat, Fort Albany, and Kasheshawan in Northern Ontario off the James Bay coast. Now they're seeing 25 to 40% energy reduction in homes. And they actually were able to create 5 to 7 local jobs in each community every year doing this project. And I think they just wrapped it up this year, and it went on for about 8 years. Or they started in 2014, I think, actually, so maybe a bit longer. The next, and there's actually another example of that in Kanaka Bar in BC, where they actually did retrofits on their homes. They did insulation, draft proofing, and new windows, and they saw a 42% reduction in air leakage. They're reducing their energy bills, and the homes are much more higher quality, and they're seeing a lot less issues in the home as well. There's actually a case study in the video series on that, so we'll get you the link to that afterwards. And then the final way to do energy efficiency in housing are the new builds. So leveraging new construction to build higher standard from the get-go. And that's actually probably the most cost-effective way. There are a few different housing building standards in Canada that exist, like LEED, Passive House, R2000. There's Net Zero Energy Ready, and the Net Zero program that sort of is where Canada is going. So here's an example of one in Huaktuk, Nunavik. Essentially, they had a culturally appropriate design. You see, like, there's some design features just in the image. You can see they're on permafrost there. So to make it, they actually had to raise it off the permafrost and put it on these essentially stilts. And yeah, they went for a Passive House standard. They didn't quite reach it, but they are still seeing huge savings in heating costs every year. And then the second example of that is actually Akwesasne, Ontario. They built a 5-plex following Passive House principles as well. They actually did training for their local workforce. They brought in Passive House trainers to actually, show them how to actually do this work for themselves. They created employment in the process for their members, and now they're seeing like energy savings of like 60% or more from these units. So I mean, that's just another example of that. So the big question that we had in bringing it home is, how do we do this for all homes across Canada and all nations, and now and for future generations? And that's really what led us to the Bringing It Home Project Accelerator program. So this is a brand new program. We're currently running our first cohort right now. So we're actually underway. We're about midway through. So, but this program is designed to support the startup and development of Indigenous energy efficiency housing projects. So the program itself is an 18-month program. We do capacity building through webinars, and we actually are going to be having 2 weeks of in-person intensive training that will actually help people. Will bring everyone together, our participants and our mentors, and they'll actually have training and hands-on training. We'll actually go to tours and really it's a deep dive into the project development and energy efficiency process. We actually have, through the program, we also give expert guidance on leading energy efficiency project work. We have ongoing mentorship. We do project coaching, and then we actually have a network of experts and mentors that we can rely on. And you see there, we actually offer each participating community a $125,000 project development grant, so they can actually go out and do the work that needs to be done to create these projects and create a project plan. So this program is open to all First Nation, Inuit, Métis communities, and it's also open to First Nations housing organizations, housing providers who provide for off-reserve homes and things like that. So they are eligible for this program as well. So I just want to quickly give an overview of how the program works. Phase 1, so it's a 2-phase program. The first phase is like really the kickstart. It's the first 6 months of the program. So that's where we'll offer a series of webinars to help you through some of the early stage project work. We give them access to mentorship, and participants gain access to $25,000 of that $125,000 grant. And just an example of some of the work that's taking place through the program. So over the 6 months, that initial project work that we have them start on in that first phase is really collecting their energy and housing information. So things like utility bills, collecting like, information about the housing, like are they stick frame, are they modular, how many windows, things like that, how many people are living in the home. And then the second thing is we have them build the project team. So in this program, there is a project lead. So each community would sort of choose or select a project lead to come in and take the training. But we want to make sure that it's not just this one person shouldering this entire project, but that they're building a team around them, and that this capacity is not being built just in one person, but throughout the community. So building a project team is very important. Community engagement to actually guide and lead the project is a big thing for us. So that's something that we want to see. And creating a project vision and identifying, sort of where you are currently, where is your community coming from, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. That's this early stage project work that our current cohort, I think we have that they're going through. They're actually working on this right now. So it's exciting to see it in action, and so coming from an idea to a reality. It was like 2 years in the making, this program. The second phase of the program is actually that project development piece. So it's a year long, 12 months. There are 2 on-site intensive training sessions. We also will continue with the project coaching and the mentorship, and then we offer a $100,000 project grant. And that project grant goes towards some of this work. So, developing your timelines, your training and deployment plan, your projected impacts, your budgets, your estimated costs, energy audits, anything like project development related. That's what this grant is for. So, and that's really the need that we heard back from communities is that a lot of communities were telling us that there is a need here to do this work. And there are some funding programs available. There is some funding available for this work, but those funders and investments will have a lot of questions, and you need to have all of this stuff sorted out already. So that's really the gap that we're trying to fill here is supporting that project development, so these communities can build a fully fledged project plan and then go out and search for funding, grants, investments, loans, things like that, to actually get the projects off the ground. So I mentioned the on-site learning sessions. So this year, what we essentially do is, we bring all of our mentors and our participants together for a week, and we have sessions, 3 or 4 sessions, about 3 sessions each day, go through, and actually there's working time as well. There's hands-on learning, there's tours, so we can actually experience some existing energy efficiency projects. We'll actually go out to the communities. This year it's Harrison Hot Springs, and actually next month. So we're really gearing up for that. And then in February, we'll be here in the Ottawa area, on the Quebec side in Wakefield. And so all of the training is delivered by Indigenous and industry experts and leaders with project experience from across Canada. And so really the impacts of the program and what we're trying to achieve through this program is for communities or organizations to complete the program with, build capacity to lead an energy efficiency project, improved literacy and knowledge of financing, understanding how healthy homes and energy efficiency sort of work together, and creating that long-term change. So like I mentioned earlier, we want these projects to really stick, and so that, the community is building the capacity for themselves and they can carry on this work. And also, at the end of the program, the big thing for us is that each community coming out has an energy efficiency project underway. So that's really the goal for us. I will talk quickly about the application process in case anyone here is interested in applying. I will talk a bit about our application window in the next couple slides, but the application process, we've designed it intentionally to encourage the projects. We call them the project lead. We're calling them project stewards, to connect with their community leadership, their housing department, so that they're actually being supported. So we're sort of there's two sections to the application. There's the project lead, and then there's the community application. So I'll touch on that here. So we do require things like a BCR or letters of support for the project steward from the community. We also need formal support for the project. So we want to make sure that the community is on board, they're ready to make change, that they're coming in with intention and an eagerness to actually move forward and improve their housing. That's really what we want to see. And from the project steward side, their commitments really are, it's full attending all of the training. So both the webinars, the in-person training, and they will be the one leading the development and a lot of the project work that's built out through the program. And so that's really, that's really the commitments and what we look for when we're assessing the applications. It's that community side, the readiness and the support for the project and the project steward, and then the project steward's commitment to do all the training and take on a project. So we are the next cohort for applications. Since it is an 18-month program, we're about midway through. We are having our initial talks and starting to plan out when our next cohort will be open for applications. We're looking probably sometime in mid-2024. No hard date yet, but definitely keep an eye out on the Indigenous Clean Energy website. We'll put a link to that in the chat, but I will have a slide on it here in a second. And the other place I would recommend looking is the ICE network. So it's icenet.org. That's the website. We actually bringing it home. So as part of our work, we're actually building an online resource library. So through all of these projects that we're doing in our program and the communities we worked with before, we're actually pulling together resources, guides, tools, case studies, things like that to actually, even if you're not in the program, you can access it. And if you're interested in taking on an energy efficiency project, you can actually, you have some resources available to you to help you along the way and understand how other communities are doing it and understand what worked for them, what are the best practices, what are the lessons learned, and sort of how does it work. So that's free, 100% accessible. The ICE network actually is we call it like Facebook for clean energy, where it's free for anyone to sign up, and there's a lot of communities, there's industry experts, there's people connecting, project updates, you're sharing information on there. It's a good chance to connect. So I would recommend, if you're not already signed up, anyone on the line, if you're interested in this sort of work, definitely check it out, because that's where our online community is sort of at, and we're connecting across the country. I do want to, I flew through this, maybe I'm talking too fast, but I do want to touch on the next webinar. So it's the 2020 Catalyst program. As a reminder, it's next Tuesday, October 24th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So that session is going to be focused on how the 2020 Catalyst program can expand your energy career and take it to the next level through community building and intensive learning. So I would really recommend that. The 2020, as I mentioned, is our flagship program. So it really started ICE, and it really touches on a broad aspect of clean energy. So even if you're not interested in exactly one thing, they cover a lot of it, and it's a really good place as a starting point. And we've seen a lot of good projects come from our participants who have taken this program. And of course, Indigenous Clean Energy, you can follow us at indigenouscleanenergy.com. We're on all of the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter at Indig Clean Energy. And I will put my email in the chat here if anyone has questions about the Bringing It Home program or the project, the Project Accelerator. And I want to, I don't have access. Oh, there we go. So my email is here. So ccote@indigenouscleanenergy.com. So feel free to send me an email if you have any questions about anything that's been shared today. I did not have access to the chat this whole time, so hopefully Lena and Mackenzie, if you're on the line, if there are any questions that have come through the chat while I was presenting, if you can, or if anyone has questions, please put your hand up. Feel free to speak them out or put it in the chat, whatever works best for you. But happy to answer some questions about the program. Yeah, Patrick.
Yeah, thanks. In terms of the energy audit, so we're looking at the energy, how much energy is consumed in our home and our administration and our businesses. And without these programs at Kanaka Bar, where you referenced, we started by having membership, regardless of residency, bring in their energy bill. And one of the things that surprised us, of the membership on reserve, over 40% of them weren't even taking the taxes off. As simple as that. You just let BC Hydro know. So that was a huge savings. So really wanted the concept. I think I seen a bullet point you mentioned energy audit or something like that. Where are we taking this? So like when I was at the Kanaka Bar, people brought me their bills. I showed them how their bills worked, and I showed them how they little things. So where do we start here? What is an energy auditor?
Yeah, when I talk about energy auditors, I'm referencing like the registered energy advisors that through the NRCan, the National Natural Resources Canada program, they're all certified. So that's really where that begins. But part of that, you're right, it is assessing the energy bills of the home, right? And it could start right from there, understanding how much energy you're using. And but when I'm talking about the energy audit, I'm talking about when you go into do the home assessment, you're doing the blower door test, you're looking at all of the you're taking all the measurements of the home and checking the air changes per hour with that blower door test and the energy use and understanding where energy is being lost in the home, and what improvements you can make to the home to make it more efficient and so that you're using less energy. And so that is a good question. Hopefully that answers it, but
Yeah, and what happened, that's the thing. So we didn't have that at the beginning of Kanaka Bar's program. And then we brought in what you talked about here. We did the blower door testings, and we found almost every one of our homes were evacuating its air 10 times per hour.
yeah,
It was a ridiculous amount. So you put a blower door testing on, that means you're heating your home 10 times per hour in the winter and 10 times an hour per, and we reduced it down with that number. In some situations, we got it as high 60% by doing not the deep retrofit. Jesus, just putting some damn caulking in between where your wall touched your thing. There were gaps in some places of 3 inches. That's substandard construction from the 60s and 70s that you're trying to fix today. And again, the corresponding benefit to the tenant or the business or the management was you saw a 60% reduction in your bill. And the best success stories for some of the membership who went from $400 a month down to $100. That's a significant operational savings. And that's the benefit they received. Of course, then if you're not evacuating this air, right, you're putting the ceilings in, there's no more critters in your house, there's no more bugs in your house, and your moisture is controlled more. So you're starting to reduce those things that affect durability. So Corey, just thanks for sharing here. I'll sign off because there must be tons of other questions.
No, I really appreciate you sharing, Patrick. And yeah, I didn't even realize you were on the line. I know you were fearful. You were involved with all the Kanaka Bar work there. So yeah, no, it is sometimes so obvious, and 10 air changes per hour is quite ridiculous. I think the NRCan, the Net Zero Energy Ready program, they're looking for homes to be at about 1.5 air changes per hour. So being at 10 is quite high, and that's the reality for a lot of Indigenous communities. There's substandard construction. Quite frankly, homes are not built for the climate, the landscape, the environment around them. They're just a lot of cookie cutter homes. I mean, there's such a need for housing in communities, right? That like we're stretching ourselves thin just to build as many homes as possible, but when you really look at the big picture, those homes are not lasting anywhere nearly as long. And it really goes back to creating that cycle that I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, where homes are not lasting as long. So you're not really building up a housing stock. And so we're just trying to change that approach. And so, yeah, it's good that you mentioned that. And I saw another hand up from Darlene.
Hi, Corey. Nice to saw you. Okay, so like with these webinars that are coming up, and it's basically like weekly. Well, right off the bat, I'm going to miss next week's because I'm going to a energy thing with the Union of Ontario Indians next week, and then I'll be back for one seminar. Then I'm off to Toronto for the energy symposium that's happening. So does that play a big factor? Like, because right off the hop, I'm gonna miss next week. So I'll be back for 1 week, and then
Yeah, so this webinar series is all recorded. So if you miss one, I'm sure we'll send out the recording afterwards, and you'll have access to the slides as well, I'm sure. So definitely, if you're interested in checking out the 2020 program, the Charge Up program, and the 2 youth programs, yeah, you should be able to still access them even if you're not there live to see these webinars.
Yeah, because it would be really nice, because right now, like, we've just did a turnover in our elections, and I have a young gentleman that's holding my portfolio, and he's really interested, especially out in BC. He said all the energy efficient homes, and like we did 5 homes last year, and we're doing 5 homes this year. And he said it would have been nice if, that you were working along with the contractors. I go, yeah, but I'm the 4th CEC within 3 years.
Yeah,
You know?
that's another reality of communities, is the turnover, the election
Yeah.
cycle, and dealing with that is definitely why the bringing it home approach that we're trying to take here is we're trying to ingrain energy efficiency in the community and the capacity building. I'd love to see, and I'm not sure if Kanakabar did this, maybe Patrick, you can speak to that, but I'm not sure if I'd love to see it, because I've seen examples of this from communities that they've ingrained energy efficiency into their housing policies so that these new practices can really survive leadership changes and things like that, and that they're actually for the long term. And I didn't talk about this in the presentation, but here's the enabling environment that we sort of built the program around. And so through a lot of consultation and talking with and meeting with Indigenous leaders, organizations, these are the 6 areas that we've identified as needing to build capacity in order to achieve long-term uptake of energy efficiency. So I mean, the financing is, I think, the obvious one, but like doing the asset management, proper maintenance is probably one of the most important things. You can build the best home in the world, but if you're not doing the maintenance and not training and educating the homeowners on how to maintain and take care of the home, it's not going to last. The skills that refers to both the home occupant skills, but also like the community workforce in the project management and the trades and those sorts of things, the design and construction. So making sure that you're designing these homes, for the landscape, the climate, the weather patterns of your community, for your community's culture, and then the governance and leadership, ensuring that they're on board and supportive, and making policy change if possible. That's what I would love to see coming out of our programs is our participants and the communities making policy change and incorporating it. And I have seen 2 communities who have done it. And so they've essentially grandfathered in all of the old appliances, but as they need to be replaced, they're all replaced with Energy Star or better. And they're doing other retrofit things as people move out, and like there's a lot of good things you can do there. But I do appreciate you pointing that out, Darlene, and I really hope you can make the other webinars.
So Corey, so like now with this program, and so we'd have to apply and again see, because like last year we didn't get it, like obviously, and so we'd have to do the application process all over again. And like I don't really know if the other CECs, and you'd probably know if they've applied for the Catalyst 2020. I know we did last year, but we weren't successful in getting it.
I am unsure of that actually, but yeah, I mean, if you want to join, email the 2020 Catalyst team, I can connect with you offline, Darlene, and pass you their information. And because I think the 2020 Catalyst program, and I think an important thing I should point out is their applications are open right now. So if you're interested at all in anything clean energy, I would highly recommend connecting with them or coming to next week's webinar, because they'll have a lot of good information. So they're actually looking for their next cohort for next year. So I think it's perfect timing if you're interested.
See, when you were talking earlier about these, like the hands-on training that are beginning for next month already in BC and Quebec, so that's kind of a long shot already. We wouldn't, the ones that are just in
Yeah.
this, we're not going to be going to that, right?
No, that's for the current cohort. So we have
Yeah.
16, we have the first cohort, we managed to get 16 participants from coast to coast to coast. We have, I think our furthest north is Northwest Territories, and we have Nunavut on the East Coast, and then we've got like a couple on the West Coast. So I mean, it's that's our current cohort. Our next round of applications is, like I mentioned earlier, probably mid 2024. We don't have a hard timeline yet, and the application process, we do make it intentionally a little bit more intensive, you know, all the support letters, but also the application form itself asks some questions about your housing and your energy as a community now. So it might take some time to actually go out and find that information. So that application process is usually about 2 or 3 months that we leave it open, so people have time to go out and get that information to create a strong application.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
Hi, Corey. This is Mary Pupo. I'm with the Métis Nation of Alberta. I just had a couple questions about the actual application, and I apologize if you've answered these already. What's the timeline for the applications, and is there any funding, like stacking restrictions?
No funding stacking restrictions, no. What the timeline is, yeah, it's we're looking mid 2024. That's our timeline there, and it's like the first round of the first cohort that we just accepted, I think it was 3 months was the application timeline. So we gave a 3-month window to get your application in, and then we do a round of interviews. Well, we do, and then we have our ICE advisory council here help us assess the applications, and we have a scoring criteria that we created to make sure that like you're sort of hitting everything. But yeah, we do a round of interviews with the project steward. So the project steward will be part of that. There's essentially 2 sections to the application form: the project steward and then the community section. And yeah, so it's, I don't want to give a hard timeline yet. We have an idea in our minds. We're talking about it. We're having initial conversations, but I'll just stick to mid 2024 for right now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? And sorry, did Lena, can you confirm that we put the links to all of these, our websites, in the chat? I can't see it.
Yes, we did.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And yes, sorry, the Catalyst applications, Lena, you put that in the chat. I actually can see it now. They're open until November 30th. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out next week's webinar. But that's really it for me. I don't really have anything else to present on. So unless there are any other questions, we can wrap it up. I see your hand up again, Patrick.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that Kanakawar's housing policy is approximately, I think it's about 80 pages long, and it does reference energy efficiency. So we created a program at Kanakawar called Can Power, which is 54 things that you can do in your home to reduce your energy consumption. Our challenge, though, is that people start forgetting about this stuff. So there's definitely a need for continuity and maintenance of your energy efficient physical as well as your human resources. People need to be reminded. And I'll give you an example. If your air conditioner is on, close your door. So I'd like to see now, again, I retired in July of 2022. They have a brand new subdivision coming online on October 29th. Corey, I'd invite you to reach out to the Kanakawar New Band. I have to make that connection for you. Since you're down in Harrison Hot Springs, so that's an hour and a half away, we may be able to do something together. And so I just want to make sure that, because I'd like to see whether or not the bills are going up, not because of rate, because people are starting to slip back into the old ways of having windows and doors open while heating and cooling are on. It's a unique story. So, you know, it's one thing to say that a build is 10 air evacuations per hour, but you can add an extra 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 if your doors and windows are open. So conservation starts with common sense.
Yeah.
So maybe we can look down and looking at Can Power. So it's demand side management. And the reason we brought in Power Smart through BC Hydro And everybody kicked him out because the last thing he wanted was a bunch of really smart people from Vancouver telling us how to save energy. So we had to create our own. So the CanPower document should be online. That's what it was designed for, is that people say, here's 54 things that have an immediate effect. That's the awareness. And then finally, I wanted to say here is that those people in the video, we gave them mentoring, we gave them love, affection, skills, and confidence, and they all left. What a win. Because the big part about capacity development is many people have self-doubt. But then that means they have trouble believing in themselves. So creating the mentoring programs, these capacity development programs, allow us to build up self-esteem and self-confidence. Now that they knew they could do it, they all left. They got well-paying, meaningful jobs in other communities, but that didn't mean we lost everybody. It's a brain drain. Human resources turnovers occurs. And that's not a bad thing, because it allows you to do it over again. And that's my take on it anyway. So, Corey, once again, thank you very much for this presentation. I almost missed it, so I'm glad that you guys have a great bumping mechanism or prompt. You've signed up, did I? My Tuesday said clean, but apparently in my email, it says you have a virtual at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock Eastern time. I'm going, I had no idea. So I'm glad I made it today. So
Yeah,
thanks.
I'm glad
for
you made
joining
it as well, Patrick. And a couple good points you made there. So I mentioned we do tours during our on-site week-long trainings. We are connecting with Kanaka Bar because we do actually want to get out and bring our cohort to actually see the retrofitted homes that have taken place there. So that's one thing. We're actually trying to get up to Yale First Nation as well to see their high-performing sixplex that they've put up. So those are two of the tours that we're hoping to do while we're in BC for that week. And yeah, you made another good point about community members. Housing can be a really touchy subject for communities. So not being prescriptive and not coming in and being this outsider and telling you how to do housing, that's a big thing for our program. Is we want these to be community based. We want the communities to decide and lead and guide themselves, guide their own projects. We're not telling you what your project needs to be. If as a participant in our program, you're definitely we're going to show you how to do it, what questions to ask, sort of how to assess who you're working with, how to create partnerships, but it's really left up to you as a community through that community engagement, through your leadership engagement, and through the understanding like the needs of your homes. It's really up to that to decide where you're taking these projects. So that's a really good point. And then the other point you made was about the maintenance and the community education. That comes back to that engagement part, which is we want to see that happening at every stage of these projects as decisions need to be made, but the education needs to happen. And we're always looking to create and source tools and resources and guides, even for community homeowners and home occupants. Even just like a simple one-page thing that you put on the side of a furnace that just shows them like how to maintain the furnace and how to change the filter. I mean, and how often, like little things like that, or how to use an HRV, because that's a new technology for a lot of members, right? Like we're making the homes more and more airtight. We need to control the airflow as well. So just things like that. That's important that we're actually trying to develop through the Bringing It Home initiative, and that's being available on that resource library that I mentioned earlier. So yeah, always hoping to keep developing that and supporting that. But yeah, okay. Any other questions before? I think I don't have my clock up, but seems we have about 10 minutes. If that's it, then I think we can end there. And yeah, thank you all for joining us. Again, I'll mention next week's webinars, same time, same day. It's going to be the 2020 Catalyst program, so I highly recommend joining that one. And so I will end the recording here if I can figure out how to do that. Can't figure out how to do that. anyways, yes. So we'll end the meeting here. Thank you all for coming and for asking some good questions and sharing. And yeah, we'll talk to you again next week.